OkCupid weirdo. Maybe not the creepiest thing to ever happen to me, but it definitely made me deactivate my account and look behind my shoulder. I was 19 years old at the time this happened, single, attending college at a university in my hometown. I still lived at home. I had friends, but I was romantically lonely, so I decided to download OkCupid and give it a whirl. I had friends who had used the app with moderate success, and I considered myself street smart. I knew I could always deactivate it if anything creepy happened. I didn't choose a username that could directly lead to finding me on social media, and I didn't list anything overtly personal in my profile. Just interests like music and movies. The usual. I like hiking, let's get to know each other. Blah, blah, blah. Things went mostly fine. I got pervy messages, but nothing too extreme. I conversed pleasantly with some guys and went on dates. I felt safe. Then one day I logged into my Facebook and had a chat request. He told me his name was Ryan and he was attending school at my university, looking for friends. I had also been in a group on Facebook about finding friends on campus because I often felt alienated there. I figured this was a man from the group, so I was very friendly in trying to get to know him. The conversation was fine at first, but I thought it was odd that he didn't have a profile picture. He kept begging me for more pictures of myself, but demurring whenever I asked for a picture of him. He would bemoan how ugly he was and how pretty girls never liked hideous guys. I tried to be nice, but it started bothering me. Then the messages started getting bizarre. He kept asking me where I was going or when I would be in class or what class I had the next day. I didn't respond. They started getting more and more frequent and hysterical. I'm talking 20 or 30 a day, begging me to respond. Then, finally in terrible punctuation, I see you every day, sitting in the Mac lab in the library. You were so cute. Please talk to me. My blood ran cold. With that text, he had sent a picture of himself as well. I recognized him as a man who had harassed me on OkCupid and who I had eventually blocked. He was probably at least 20 years older, balding with extremely yellow teeth. I'm not trying to judge someone on appearance, but something in his eyes was wild and just didn't sit right with me. I'm not sure if I'm describing this right, but his eyes were just like black pits. He really creeped me out. Somehow he had found my personal Facebook from OkCupid, and I'm not even sure how. But he also knew I had studied at Lay's library in the Mac lab and made it clear he had been watching me for quite some time. There was no way he would have known that unless he had been actively, physically stalking me. I had never seen him on campus and never contacted him again. I blocked him instantly from Facebook and always checked behind my back when I walked at night on campus. For a while, I was worried he was still stalking me at the library, so I'd always change the locations I'd study at. It was all very nerve-wracking. What was I thinking? This took place about 8 years ago. I had been single for a very long time. My kids kept telling me to get back into the swing of things, but I just kept making excuses. My nephew told me about this dating site. He said that there was no harm in talking to people, so I did it. I put everything out there so there were no surprises when or if they met me. I thought that if they still contacted me after reading everything about me and we matched, then maybe we could have coffee together. Well, I matched with a few and the conversations went well. I met with one gentleman who was way too regimental for my crazy life and kindly declined any more involvement with him. Another guy seemed too pushy and acted like I should be honored to be in his presence. But then there came Richard. Richard seemed great. We carried on conversations for hours. He lived an hour and a half away, so all we could really do was talk to each other. We talked about our kids, dreams, goals. My daughter even friended one of his sons on Facebook. I was a secretary for some self-help meetings in my town, and he was going to school to be a counselor. Perfect, right? We talked for at least 4 months, but after a while, I noticed that he kept having small problems come up. arguments with his mom, who he lived with, no money for gas, his truck broke down, just little things, you know. Not anything that would set me off, but it was his poor me attitude. I tried to let that go and really be a positive influence in his life. His mother and boys loved me and told me that they had never seen him so happy. Time went on and we were still talking every day. I had an opportunity to come see him, and of course, my daughter went with me so she could meet his son in person as well. I took him and his son out to eat at the only little coffee shop in that town. He knew I was on a fixed income, but I paid anyway because he was going to school and didn't have an income at all as of yet. We had a good time. We met at his son's house on a hilltop town, and we were having such a good time that we didn't notice that the snow was coming down hard and the roads were icing up. My daughter and I stayed the night in one of the rooms. It seemed like the closer we got to his family, the more distant they became to him. It was odd. The next day, the roads were clear, so we said our goodbyes and went home. But before we left, I received one extra hug from his son's mother-in-law. She whispered in my ear, "Don't fall for him." I thought that maybe there was something she didn't like about me. The next few days, we didn't talk. I thought that was odd. Did I do something wrong? Someone from the self-help meeting told me that there was a man looking for me. She said he looked disheveled and smelled of alcohol. This wasn't a surprise to me because I had helped quite a few people get back on their feet, and maybe this one fell off the wagon and just needed to talk. As I was driving down my street, I saw a truck in my driveway I didn't recognize at first. It was him. He found out where I lived and was sitting in front of my house. At first I was happy until I looked in his truck and saw him slumped over, reeking of booze. At that point, my fixed mode set in and I asked him in for some strong coffee. He told me that he had a blowout with his mother and she kicked him out and his boys won't talk to him. I got him some clean clothes and told him to take a shower. I figured we could sort it out the next day. In the meantime, I was taking him to a meeting. He sobered up and agreed to go. The whole time at the meeting, my friends were acting like I had lost my mind. Did they see something that I was blind to? We went back to my house and he seemed okay. Almost too okay, like nothing at all had happened. My son pulled me aside and told me he didn't like him much, but I thought that maybe he was just being overprotective. I should have paid more attention. We went to the store because I wasn't prepared for the extra mouth, and I bought 4 liters of soda, a gallon of milk, 2 monsters for both him and my son, some chips, and other things for dinner. After we ate, we all watched some TV and headed off to bed. I let him sleep on the spare bed in my room, but in the middle of the night, he tried to get frisky, and just no. My grown kids were in the other room, and something just didn't sit well with me, like he wasn't the same man he was before. The next morning, my daughter came running out of the bathroom angry. She said in a loud voice, "Someone pissed all over the toilet." He didn't say a word. Later, we were all eating breakfast and he started to let food drop out of his mouth onto the table and floor and was spitting food while he was talking. He took 3 2-liters and drank them back to back with it running down his chin. What the hell? Then he took the remote and started setting future recordings for his favorite shows and deleting a few of my grandchildren's. He set recordings for weeks in advance. All right, what you're doing, my friend, this is not cool. I told him, but he acted like I said nothing. Then he went to the refrigerator and told me that I had to go to the store and buy more soda and stuff because it was all gone. And it was gone. He even drank my son's monster and the entire gallon of milk. All in one day, mind you. One day. My daughter was so livid she contacted his son, and he proceeded to tell her that Richard's mother kicked him out because he wouldn't get a job and was stealing money and eating her out of house and home. His other son won't talk to him because he keeps asking for money and won't pay it back. He himself was mad at him for lying to me by telling me that he was going to school when he wasn't and using me as his next big meal ticket. Well, that was it. I got all his stuff together and took it to his truck and asked him to leave. it doesn't end there. He had loosened some bolts on his transmission, making it impossible to move. He begged and pleaded for me to let him stay. He said that he just wanted to be close to me, and if that meant sleeping in his truck, he would do that, and he couldn't live without me. Hell no. I called his oldest son and told them that if they didn't come with a tow truck and get their dad, his fate was not going to be nice. They arrived 2 hours later, apologizing for their father's actions. We found out through his son that for many years, he had gone through quite a few unhealthy relationships and took advantage of a lot of women that fell for his lies. And he still tries to friend me on Facebook to this day. Bumble match turned killer. I just need to get this story out because it's still so unbelievably surreal to me. Last fall, I started using dating apps seriously because I really wanted to branch out and meet new guys. I moved back from home after I graduated college in May, which was still the pretty early stages of COVID, so I was lonely. I've only ever used Tinder, so my friend told me I should try Bumble, and at first it was fun. I matched with a few guys and they were nice, but the convos kind of died off after a while. I didn't really form a real connection with anyone on there. One of the guys I matched with asked for my Snapchat, which I gave to him so we could talk on there, and we also followed each other on Instagram. That kind of stuff is harmless to me, and I really didn't think much of it. Our convos didn't last long, and we stopped talking after just a few days. It was a little strange, and I was turned off by it. Fast forward a couple months, and I get a message from him on Instagram. He told me he unfollowed me because of my support for Joe Biden in the election, and then proceeded to spam me with probably over 40 messages, trying to convince me to change my views and vote for Trump. I'm a very liberal person, and if I would have known he was like this, I would have never spoken to him in the first place. He kept telling me people have blocked him for doing this before, and to please just understand where he's coming from. His last few messages were memes to ease the tension of the one-sided conversation. I didn't respond. I didn't even block him. I opened the messages so he could see I saw them, and then unfollowed him. The next morning, I got notifications telling me this message has been unsent by the sender for every single message. Of course, I screen recorded it and sent it to my friend to tell her what happened because it was creepy and bizarre. It was over after that though, and the topic of this guy didn't come up again, so I moved on. A few weeks ago, I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw a post from the local news station that was shared from the town this guy was from that's about an hour away from me. It was a news article about a guy who shot and killed an 87-year-old woman who lived in his apartment complex with a semi-automatic. He was trying to get to other residents in the complex, but he was shot and killed as well by a resident in order to protect the others who lived there. As I was reading about this, the guy's name and face seemed so familiar. And then it clicked. It was the same guy. I went back to the screen recording of the messages I took months ago, and they confirmed it was him. I'm not sure how to describe what my response was, but I got really sweaty, and my heart was racing when I made the realization. It's extremely disturbing knowing that I spoke to this man and even had a weird experience with him. It's been a few weeks since I found out, and I still feel weird about it. I was just reading about it again today, since more details have been reported since the initial shooting. What if I had responded to his messages the way I wanted to, and pissed him off to the point of violence and he tried to harm me? I hope the woman he unfairly murdered is resting in eternal peace.